Evan never imagined that his first year of college would bring him something so strange, so unexpected, and yet so life-changing. When he signed up for the International Student Exchange Program, he thought he would meet new people, maybe someone from across the world. He never thought that international would mean interstellar. His new roommate was not from another country. She was from another world. Her name was Karen, not Karen, like the human name, but Karen, with a soft, rising sound at the end, almost like a musical note. She came from the planet Vera, one of Earth's first official allies in the galaxy. The government said the program was about cultural understanding and building bridges between species. But, for Evan, it was something much more personal. The first time he saw her, he had to force himself not to stare. Karen stood tall, a little taller than him, with silver blue skin that shimmered faintly under the dorm lights. Her large eyes glowed violet, like tiny pools of starlight. Instead of hair, she had fine, silk-like strands that shifted with her mood, glowing brighter when she was curious. She wasn't frightening, but she wasn't ordinary either. She was alien in the truest sense of the word. At first, Evan was nervous. How do you talk to someone from another world? What if you say the wrong thing? What if your habits seem rude to them? But Karen broke the silence with a smile, at least something close to a smile. Varens didn't exactly smile the way humans did, but the way her eyes softened and her voice lifted carried the same warmth. "I am Karen," she said. "I hope we will be good roommates." From that moment, the fear inside Evan slowly melted. The days that followed were awkward at times, but also filled with small wonders. Karen was endlessly curious about Earth. She touched everything in their dorm, turning it over in her hands like a scientist studying artifacts. She once held a toaster for an hour, asking why humans burn their food to blackness just to eat it. Every morning she wrote notes in her small glowing data pad. She called it Field Notes on Human Strangeness. The way humans slept, at night instead of in short cycles, the way they added sugar to drinks, the way they sang in the shower, everything fascinated her. One evening, Evan walked into the room to find Karen balancing a spoon on her nose. When he laughed, she looked at him seriously and said, "This is an experiment. Humans find this funny. I wish to understand why." Evan couldn't stop laughing then. That was the first night they truly felt like friends. But friendship was not always easy. Karen struggled with things humans took for granted. She had trouble understanding sarcasm. She didn't see the point of jokes that weren't literal. Once, when Evan said, "I'm starving, I could eat a horse," Karen nearly called the campus authorities, thinking humans consumed their transportation animals. Still, little by little, she learned. And little by little, Evan began to see the world through her eyes. Things he had stopped noticing, like the smell of rain on the concrete or the sound of leaves crunching underfoot, suddenly became new again when Karen asked, "Why does this sound comfort you?" Or "Why does this smell make you smile?" Evan found himself explaining feelings he had never put into words before. Late at night, when the campus grew quiet, Karen would sit by the window, staring at the stars. She often asked questions that cut deeper than Evan expected. Why do humans hold each other when they are sad? Why do you cry when you watch moving images of imaginary people? Why do you write songs about love, even when it hurts you? Evan would try his best to answer, but sometimes he had no perfect explanation. Sometimes he simply said, "Because that's what makes us human." Karen would nod slowly, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight, and whisper, "Strange, but beautiful." By the end of the first month, Evan no longer saw her as just the alien exchange student. She had become a part of his life. She was awkward, yes, and sometimes her questions made him blush or stumble for words. But she was also kind, curious, and, though she might not admit it, lonely. And in that loneliness, Evan saw something familiar, because deep down, every human knows what it feels like to want to belong, to want to understand, to want to connect. What Evan didn't know was that Karen's curiosity would soon lead her to discover something about humans that would change both of their lives forever. something private, something powerful, something no Veyran had ever truly understood. And it would all begin with one accidental discovery. The evening started like any other. Evan had been at class all day, exhausted, from lectures and long notes, and all he wanted was to drop his bag, sit down with a snack, and maybe lose himself in a mindless video game. The dorm hall smelled faintly of coffee and detergent, the usual college mixture, and his mind was already drifting toward the comfort of his bed. But when he pushed the door open, his entire body froze. Karen was sitting on his bed, her violet, eyes wide, her glowing data pad resting forgotten at her side. She wasn't reading her notes. She wasn't experimenting with his toaster or asking about his shoes this time. She was staring at his laptop. The screen glowed softly in the dim room, paused in the middle of a human biology documentary. It wasn't anything graphic, not like the things college boys sometimes hid under folders named homework. No, this was just a serious educational film about human reproduction, how life begins, how children are born. It had been left open from Evan's biology research earlier in the day. He hadn't thought twice about leaving it on his desk. But now it was in front of her. Karen's face looked strange. Her silver blue skin shimmered faintly as if her body didn't quite know what to feel. Her strands of hair-like filaments glowed faintly, pulsing in uneven rhythm. When she looked up at Evan, her voice trembled. Evan, this is how your species continues? Evan's throat tightened. Heat rushed to his cheeks. He nearly dropped his backpack. Wait, what are you doing? You weren't supposed to watch that. Karen tilted her head slightly, her gaze fixed on him. Two beings, together, and then a new life grows inside the body of one? I have studied many worlds, Evan. I have seen countless methods of survival. But this is impossible. He rubbed the back of his neck, wishing the ground would swallow him whole. It's not something we talk about casually, it's private. But Karen leaned forward, her eyes shining with wonder, not embarrassment. Private? Why? It is miraculous. You create life not with machines, not with sterile exchanges of cells, but with closeness, with touch, with something more. I can feel it. This act, it is not only science, is it? It is emotion. Her words made Evan's chest tighten. He sat down slowly on the chair across from her. It's complicated. Yes, it's biology, but for us it's not just biology, it's connection. It's love sometimes, it's trust. It's something humans share with someone they care about. Karen's lips parted, as though she were struggling to find words. For once, she didn't write in her datapad. She didn't even move. She just whispered, "On Vera, we do not touch. We exchange genetic matter through machines. There is no closeness, no choice, only continuation of the species. We do not feel this bond." There was silence between them, heavy and fragile. The hum of the laptop fan was the only sound. Evan had never felt so exposed, not even in front of another human. Finally, Karen spoke again, her voice softer, almost breaking. All this time, I thought your kind was fragile. You bleed too easily, you break too easily, your lives are so short, but this... She pointed to the frozen image on the laptop screen. This makes you strong, stronger than us. Evan swallowed, his throat dry. Karen, it's not perfect. Humans fight. We hurt each other. We make mistakes with love. But even with all of that, we still choose it. Because it's worth something. Her glowing eyes shimmered with unshed tears, though Veyrans weren't supposed to cry. Strange, she whispered. So strange, but so beautiful. Evan didn't know what to say. He had never thought of reproduction as something poetic. It was awkward to talk about even with, his own species. Yet here was Karen, looking at it as though she had just discovered fire, as though she had just learned what it meant to be alive. For the first time since meeting her, Evan realized something powerful. Karen had crossed galaxies, traveled light years, and studied 100 human habits. But only now did she truly see what made them human. Not their technology, not their intelligence, not their survival. It was their ability to connect. And in that dimly lit dorm room, Evan understood that things would never be the same between them. Because once an alien discovers what it means to be human, there is no going back. The days after Karen's discovery felt different. The room they once shared in easy silence now carried a quiet tension. Not an uncomfortable one, but something heavier, something unspoken that lingered in the air. Karen had always been curious, but now her curiosity sharpened, focused on one single subject: human reproduction. It wasn't the science that fascinated her anymore. She already understood cells, genes, and biology. What she wanted to know was something deeper. She wanted to understand the feeling. She started asking questions at random times, as if her thoughts wouldn't let her rest. One morning, while Evan brushed his teeth, she stood at the doorway and asked, "How does the bond feel?" He choked on the toothpaste. What bond?" "The bond you humans form. When you choose someone to share this act with, do you feel it in your skin? In your heart? In your mind?" Her violet eyes were wide, searching for an answer that made sense to her. Evan spat into the sink, trying to buy time. "It's not something you can measure, Karen. It's like warmth, like safety, like knowing you're not alone." She wrote this down in her glowing pad. Warmth, safety, not alone. Strange. Another day while they ate lunch. Together, she leaned forward suddenly, lowering her voice as though afraid someone might overhear. "Do you choose who to share this act with?" Evan nearly dropped his sandwich. "Yes, of course." Her silver brows furrowed. "On Vera, there is no choice. The machines select compatible strands. We never think of it as decision. But for humans, you decide." "Why?" He looked at her, carefully, realizing how alien her perspective truly was. "Because it matters who you share it with. It's not only about creating life. It's about trust. About love." Karen repeated the word slowly, like a prayer. Love. A choice. Not order, not duty, a choice. She didn't eat for a long time after that. One evening, when the sky outside turned orange and the dorm was bathed in fading sunlight, she asked her most difficult question yet. "Is it painful? Is it joyful?" Evan froze, his hands still on his keyboard. The question was so blunt, so direct, yet her eyes carried no mockery, no immaturity, only raw curiosity. He shut his laptop and leaned back. "It can be both. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it feels like the greatest joy in the world. It depends on the people. It depends on how much they care for each other." Her eyes glowed brighter at his words, reflecting the sunset. "Your kind. You carry so much in your emotions. On Vera, we have never known this joy, nor this pain." She looked down at her hands, flexing her long fingers as though imagining touch. "Perhaps that is why your kind creates songs, poems, paintings. You live with a fire we do not understand." Evan felt his chest tighten. He had never thought of human love as fire before. But now, through her eyes, it seemed exactly that. Wild, dangerous, but full of light. That night, Karen didn't sit by the window to write her usual notes. Instead, she sat quietly on her bed, her silver skin glowing faintly in the moonlight. When Evan finally broke the silence, she spoke in a voice he had never heard from her before, soft, trembling, almost fragile. "Evan, I envy you." He turned, startled. "What do you mean?" Her gaze stayed fixed on her hands. "My people will never know this bond. We will never feel what it is like to choose, to hold, to give ourselves to another because of love. We are efficient, but we are empty. You humans, you are fragile, yes, but you are alive in ways we cannot imagine." Evan sat quietly, unsure what to say. Her words cut deeper than he expected. For a moment, he forgot she was from another world. She sounded just like anyone else who had ever longed for something out of reach. Gently, he said, Maybe, that's why you're here. To learn, to feel, to see what it means to be human. Karen finally looked at him, her violet eyes glistening. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the campus outside drifted through the open window. But inside the room, the silence was full, not empty, but heavy with meaning. And for the first time, Evan realized her questions weren't only about humans. They were about herself. Part 4. The Conflict. The night was unusually quiet. Outside their dorm window, the campus slept under the silver glow of the moon. Streetlights hummed faintly, and the distant sound of laughter from students faded into silence. Evan returned late from the library, carrying a heavy bag of books, his mind weighed down by assignments. He pushed the door open softly, hoping not to disturb Karen if she was asleep. But she wasn't asleep. She sat by the window in darkness, her back straight, her silver blue skin glowing faintly in the moonlight. Her violet eyes shimmered as though they carried a storm inside them. Her hands trembled on her lap. For the first time since he met her, Karen looked broken. Karen? Evan whispered, dropping his bag gently. What's wrong? She didn't answer right away. She just kept staring out at the stars, her breath uneven. Finally, her voice came, soft, raw, and unsteady. Evan, do you know what hurts the most? It is not what I do not understand. It is what I will never be allowed to feel. Evan moved closer, pulling up a chair beside her. He could see her hands, shaking now. What do you mean? Karen's voice cracked, though she fought to steady it. My people, the Vayrans, we never touch. We never hold each other. We never share closeness the way humans do. We exist to continue, not to connect. We are born, we work, we contribute, we end. Nothing more. Her glowing strands of hair flickered dimly, like dying light. And yet, now I have seen how your kind bonds, how you choose each other, how you hold each other when you are sad, how you fight for love, even when it breaks you. Her breath caught, and she pressed her hand against her chest, as though something inside her ached. I envy you. I envy all humans, because you live with meaning even when it hurts. Evan's throat tightened. He had never seen her like this. She was always curious, sometimes confused, often serious, but never so vulnerable. He wanted to say something, anything, but words felt small in the face of her pain. So instead he reached out. Slowly, gently, he placed his hand over hers. Karen stiffened at the touch. Her eyes widened, her body tense, as if the contact was forbidden, alien, even dangerous. On Vera, touch was almost unthinkable, but she didn't pull away. She let his hand rest there, and slowly her trembling quieted. This, Evan whispered, his voice steady though his heart pounded, is the first step. Touch. Connection. It's small, but it means you're not alone. Karen looked at their joined hands, her violet eyes glistening with something close to tears. So simple, and yet, it feels like everything. For a long moment, they stayed like that. No words, no explanations, just the silent bridge between two beings from different worlds. Finally, Karen spoke again, her voice trembling less now. Evan, do you know why I asked you all those questions? About your bond, about your choices, about love? He shook his head gently. Because I want to understand, not for my notes, not for science, but for myself. I want to know what it means to live the way humans live. To feel the way humans feel. To connect. Evan swallowed hard, his chest tightening. Karen, you already are. Right now. You're connecting. That's what this is. Her eyes softened, and for the first time that night, a faint shimmer of hope returned to her face. Then maybe I am not so different from you after all. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was gentle, almost comforting. The night air drifted through the window, carrying the faint scent of grass and rain. The stars above seemed brighter, as if listening to their quiet conversation. In that moment, Evan realized something important. Karen wasn't just learning about humans. She was learning about herself, discovering emotions her people had, buried for generations. But deep inside, he also knew this discovery would not come without cost. The Varens were proud, strict, and controlled. If Karen continued down this path, she might face consequences far greater than either of them could imagine. For now, though, none of that mattered. What mattered was the fragile warmth of her, hand in his, and the unspoken truth they both felt. That connection, no matter how small, was worth the risk. The days that followed that night were different. Something had shifted between them. Their dorm no longer felt like just a room they shared. It felt like a space where two worlds quietly touched each other. Karen began asking Evan not only questions about human behavior but also requests. "Teach me how to greet like a human," she asked one morning. So Evan extended his hand and shook hers gently. Her grip was stiff at first, uncertain, but then she smiled faintly. "Strange ritual," she said softly, "but it feels welcoming." Later, she asked about hugs. "Why do humans press their bodies together? What does it mean?" Evan explained as best he could, though his face turned red. "It's comfort. It means you're safe with someone." When she asked him to show her, he hesitated, then slowly wrapped his arms around her. She stood stiffly, her glowing strands flickering nervously, but then slowly, she relaxed. He felt her arms come up around him, uncertain at first, but then steady. For a few seconds, she just stayed there, holding him. When she finally pulled away, her eyes shone brighter than before. "Warmth," she whispered. "It feels like warmth." Karen practiced these gestures as though they were lessons, but they were more than that. Each handshake, each hug, each small act of human closeness seemed to awaken something inside her. She was no longer only recording human habits in her data pad. She was living them. One evening, as they sat side by side on Evan's bed, their shoulders almost touching, Karen spoke in a voice low and thoughtful. "I once believed humans were weak," she admitted. "Your bodies break easily. Your years are short. You fear so many things: disease, loss, even loneliness. On Vera, we are stronger. We live longer, our technology shields us from danger, and we never suffer from longing. That is what I believed." She paused, her violet eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "But now, I think I was wrong. Maybe your strength is not in lasting forever. Maybe it is in how deeply you live while you can. You feel so much, even knowing your time is short. You risk your hearts even knowing they can break. That is strength." Evan's chest tightened at her words. He looked at her and smiled faintly. "That's what makes us human. We live with all the risk, but we still choose connection. Because it's worth it." Karen turned toward him, her gaze steady. Slowly, she leaned forward until her forehead rested gently against his. Evan froze at the unfamiliar gesture, but then he remembered. She had told him once that this was a Varen sign of closeness, more intimate than words. Her voice was a whisper. "Then let me learn. Let me feel. Let me be more than what my people taught me." From that night on, their bond grew in quiet ways. Karen no longer stood apart when they walked across campus. She walked beside him, her steps matching his. When he laughed, she tried to laugh too, even if she didn't understand the joke. When she saw him tired, she would bring him water or sit silently until he felt better. And Evan, he found himself changing too. He noticed how the world looked, through her eyes. How rain on the glass was a miracle, how the sound of human voices in the distance was music, how even the simple act of touch carried meaning. They were no longer just roommates. They were no longer just student and alien. They were something else now, something unnamed but undeniable. One night, as the campus lights flickered outside, Karen whispered something that stayed with Evan forever. "I used to think I came here to study your kind, to collect knowledge, and return home. But now I see. Maybe I came here for something else. Maybe I came here to find what I was missing." Evan looked at her, his heart pounding. But he said nothing. He didn't need to. Her hand found his, and their fingers intertwined, clumsy but sincere. For Karen, it was the first true bond she had ever chosen. For Evan, it was the beginning of something he could not yet name. But he felt it deep inside. Strong, fragile, and real. And in that quiet dorm room, under the soft hum of the night, an alien and a human discovered that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in surviving, but in connecting. Rumors always spread faster than truth. It started with whispers in the cafeteria. A few curious glances when Karen walked beside Evan, their shoulders brushing, their hands sometimes almost touching. Then questions from other students. "Are you two together?" Evan laughed nervously. Karen tilted her head in confusion, and the questions only grew. Soon it was not only humans who noticed. Other Veyron students on campus began to whisper too. Their glowing eyes lingered on Karen with disapproval, their faces cold and unreadable. Veyrons did not show anger easily, but Karen felt it in the way they looked away from her as if she had done something shameful. One evening, Karen returned to the dorm room with her usual calm face, but Evan noticed the way her glowing strands flickered faintly, betraying unrest. "What happened?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then sat on the bed, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "They saw me with you. Other Veyron students. They do not approve." Evan frowned. "Approve of what? Us hanging out, being friends?" Her eyes met his, and for a moment they were filled with sadness. "They believe I am dishonoring my people. To them, touching a human, walking close to a human, learning your ways, it is weakness. They think I am forgetting what it means to be Veyron." Evan felt his chest grow tight. "That's ridiculous. You're not hurting anyone." But Karen's voice grew quiet. "To them I am. Because the Veyrons are taught to remain distant, to live without such attachment, and they see me changing. They see me becoming human." The conflict came to a head when Karen received a transmission from a Veyron elder. Evan watched as she sat before her glowing datapad, her face pale, her eyes fixed on the figure who appeared on the screen. "Karen." The elder's voice was deep, cold, and commanding. "Your behavior has been reported. We have seen how you lower yourself to human customs. You risk dishonor not only for yourself but for all Veyrons on Earth." Karen sat straighter, her hands clenched. "Elder, I only wish to learn, to understand humans deeply. That is why we were sent here, is it not?" The elder's eyes narrowed. "Understand, yes, but not become. You must not forget, you are Veyron. You do not belong to them. Their ways will weaken you. If you continue, you may no longer be counted among us." The words struck Karen like a blade. Evan could see her filaments dimming, her glow fading. He wanted to shout at the elder, to defend her, but he knew this was not his fight. This was hers. Karen's voice wavered, but she tried to stay firm. "Elder, I believe you are wrong. Humans are not weak. They are stronger than us in ways you do not see. They live with fire in their hearts. They choose connection even, knowing it will break them. That is not weakness, that is courage." The elder's voice hardened. "Enough. If you continue down this path, Karen, you will no longer be Veyron. You will be nothing." The screen went dark. The silence that followed was heavy. Karen sat frozen, her hands shaking. Evan moved closer, his heart aching at the sight of her. "Karen," he whispered, placing a hand on her shoulder. She looked at him with eyes full of pain. "Do you see now, Evan? If I stay with you, if I keep learning this bond, I may lose my people. I may lose everything I was born to be. Evan swallowed hard. And if you give it up? If you walk away from all this? Her lips trembled. Then I will lose myself. The room grew quiet again, filled only by the sound of their breathing. Outside, the night pressed in heavy, as though the world itself was waiting for her answer. Evan took her hand gently, his voice steady but soft. Karen, sometimes being human means choosing what feels right, even if it hurts. No one can make that choice for you, not even me. She stared at him, her violet eyes shimmering with conflict, torn between duty and discovery, between the life she had always known and the life she had just begun to taste. And in that moment, Karen understood that her greatest challenge was not the disapproval of her people. It was the decision of who she truly wanted to be. Part 7. The Ending. The night after the elder's warning was long and heavy. Evan could not sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the campus outside. Every now and then, he glanced across the room at Karen. She sat by the window again, her body still, her eyes fixed on the stars. Her glowing strands dimmed and brightened as if her very thoughts pulled at them. She looked more fragile than ever, as though she might shatter if the wrong word was spoken. Finally, Evan sat up, his voice quiet. Karen, talk to me, please. She turned slowly, her violet eyes glistening in the moonlight. Evan, my people gave me a choice without giving me a choice. If I stay with you, if I learn what it means to connect, I will be cut off. They will say I am no longer Varen. But if I turn away now, if I bury what I have learned, then I will never be whole again. Her voice cracked on the last words, and for a moment she looked down at her hands as though searching for answers there. Evan moved closer, sitting beside her. He didn't reach out this time, not yet. He only looked at her and said softly, Sometimes being human means making the hard choice. It means standing for what you believe in, even when it costs you everything. She studied his face for a long moment, her eyes searching, as if she wanted to borrow his courage. Then, slowly, she whispered, Then I will choose. I will choose connection. I will choose humanity.